So we turn our attention now to Florida's Early Learning Roadmap, a very special document that we released last fall, developed with the participation of nearly 1,000 Floridians, parents, educators, owners and operators of early learning programs, law enforcement, business leaders, and more. The roadmap was developed in 3 phases. First, we went around the state having conversations with parents and educators in small groups, talking about their experiences with early learning and asking about their hopes and dreams for their children and their families. Then we brought in some of those proximity experts, those who have direct experience and knowledge of the early learning system, together with system leaders and the policy experts in a statewide steering committee. And that was the group charged with taking everything that we heard in our listening tour and turning it into recommendations, responding to that. And last, we brought those draft recommendations again all across the state, hosting community meetings to learn what we got right, what folks wanted to see changed. So the final roadmap with 41 recommendations across 4 key components is truly the work of extensive collaboration. That collaboration continues today as we have a statewide advisory board that is charged with prioritizing the implementation of these recommendations. And today I'm pleased to announce that we've got new wind in our sails to continue this work. Helios Education Foundation has given a grant of $1 million to support the implementation of Florida's Early Learning Roadmap. This will support the continued work of our advisory board, now working across 4 different working groups that have identified short and long-term priorities and, of course, legislative asks, and will also help us to build momentum with partners across the state who are networked locally and championing the roadmap in their own communities. In keeping with the theme of roadmap, we call these our community drivers because they are leading their community on the road to the recommendations that they have prioritized. So we're really happy to share this $1 Million Day with all of you. We've said from the beginning that the recommendations in the roadmap are a recipe and not a menu because each one is crucial for making the changes that we want to see to meet the needs of parents, children, and the people who educate them. So thank you to the Helios Education Foundation again for recognizing the importance of this work and helping us to accelerate the pace of change on early education in Florida. Back to the roadmap, the beauty of this effort is in the diversity of Floridians who join together to make change. And I can think of no better way to showcase this work than to let you meet some of the people involved. For our next panel, Faces of Florida's Early Learning Roadmap, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Varnessa McCray, to moderate. Varnessa is our first Director of Community Engagement at The Movement and a dedicated road warrior who has covered so much of the state already in her first 9 months. So her face will already be familiar to many of you, and I turn it over to you, Varnessa.
Thank you, Madeline. It has truly been a pleasure to not only be a part of the tremendous work being done for our youngest learners and their families here in Florida, but to be a part of the team here at The Movement, as well as carry the roadmap throughout the state. Next up, we have 5 special guests today who represent the faces of Florida's Early Learning Roadmap. 4 of them serve on our Roadmap Advisory Board and 1 as a community driver, and they are all implementing roadmap recommendations in their own capacities. First, I have Simone McDaniel. She is a state program director and an addiction therapist by trade. She's a former preschool teacher and the mother of a bright and beautiful 5-year-old girl.
Good morning.
I have Dawn Montecalvo, who is the president and CEO of Guadalupe Center in Immokalee, Florida, where she is dedicated to providing quality early learning education, as well as ensuring that all of our children are ready for kindergarten.
Good morning.
We have Dr. Herman Knopf, who is a senior research scientist at the University of Florida, Anita Zucker Center for Excellence in Early Childhood Studies. Herman is also a father. One of his first jobs was actually as a teacher in an early learning classroom. So he brings more than 20 years of experience to our field now.
Morning.
We have Carrie Miller, who serves as Chancellor for Early Learning, directing Florida's Department of Education Division of Early Learning. She is also a former elementary teacher and reading coach and has served our state in many capacities to improve literacy and just overall achievement for all of our students.
Good morning.
And last but not least, I have Diana Santangelo, who is Director of Community Foundation Tampa Bay and leads Thrive by 5 Tampa Bay. I would like to announce that Thrive by 5 Tampa Bay is our first official roadmap community driver. Yay.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Thank you all for being here. I'd like to start with a question for all of you. Can you all take 1 minute and share your why for the work that you do in early childhood? Simone.
Good morning again. My why for working in early childhood, I actually fell into it in 2003 and just fell in love with working with children and being able to educate them. I worked at a local school here that specialized with special needs children. And I saw how those children came out so well educated, and now those children now are at University of Florida, becoming astronauts and scientists and things like that. So just working in the education field was probably the highlight of my younger years, and now that I have a young child, doing the same thing with her education.
Herman.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one, I think that we're all here because we recognize that early childhood is a critically important time in children's development. That the experiences and context that children live and grow in early in life have a profound impact on their life trajectories, the adults they'll become, and ultimately the success that they'll be able to achieve. I've been a classroom teacher, program director, teacher education instructor, and now a researcher. In all of these roles, my focus has been on improving the circumstances and experiences for children, families, and the educators that are actively working to support them.
Thank you. Carrie.
Hey, good morning again. My path is a little unique and a little different than probably a number of the folks on this call, but I did start as an elementary educator, became a literacy coach. My passion was really about supporting teachers and mastering their craft to effectively teach all children to read by the end of 3rd grade. So that's really where my career began, and became very passionate about. Did a lot of work in literacy world, if you will, and learned very quickly that starting in kindergarten was way too late. And so I've been blessed with an opportunity to lead efforts with unbelievably smart people at the Division of Early Learning and our early learning coalitions across the state to really put that laser-like focus earlier, right? And really focusing on our youngest learners, ensuring we're preparing for them to enter kindergarten ready for school. And we do that in a number of ways, right? We've got to support families, right? Ensuring we're supporting families to become economically self-sufficient while we're providing high quality care and education to their kiddos to prepare them to enter kindergarten ready for school. So my background's a little bit unique and different, but grateful to be in this role in improving outcomes for children starting as early as possible.
Diana.
Hi, everyone. Well, my path is a little different as well, too. Interestingly enough, I typically worked with teenagers and youth. So I started actually abroad teaching English language learners. I taught about 10 years of high school. Always loved high schoolers, moved down to Miami-Dade, see lots of friends on the call, and worked with United Way and got into a space of youth development work and youth violence prevention, and worked with incredible partners and incredible youth. And my sister will force me to add, I also took this position to be closer to her in Tampa Bay, which is also somewhat true. But really, honestly, all of the work that I've done in the space of youth development and violence prevention, when you just look back at it, we all know that why can't we help earlier? Why are we waiting until now? So when we look back and we look at these early years, it's been a really neat experience for me to be able to shift right to the beginning. How do we provide supports to families? How do we make sure that we wrap our arms around the entire family and that they're ready to rock and roll for kindergarten?
All right. And Dawn.
Well, I guess my path is even more different. Not an educator like so many on the panel and on this call, but I have personally and professionally seen how education can change lives and break the cycle of poverty. My mother, English was a second language for my mother. She only had a third grade education. My father dropped out of school after eighth grade after his mom had died. They both worked very hard to raise the family, keep a roof over our head. But education really was the key for me going to college and to grad school to break that cycle of poverty. Some of I have a brother that did not happen, and he's still living in poverty because he did not have the education. But in my work now, I use my professional skills, my marketing skills to help empower other people to support and help families so that they can get the education. And early learning is where it has to start. It needs to be from birth and that brain development. And I'm very excited to be able to help that work and empower people to support it.
What great passion you all have for the work that you do. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. So getting back to Florida's early learning roadmap, the experiences and dreams of parents and educators are at the core of our recommendations and our implementation plan. Simone, as a parent representative on our Roadmap Advisory Board, can you share how your family has navigated early learning resources and what has led to choices you've made in using the system?
So, as a single parent of my one daughter, I explored several different childcare options. Being that I come from childcare, I realized how expensive it is, and on my single income, it was just not feasible. So I ended up putting her in a private home sitter that was affordable, um, and then eventually utilizing the ELC program to have her assessed and put into a VPK program. And even with me having a job promotion, I still did not have enough income to put her into a daycare where they provided VPK. So the school that I put her in was a Title I, which meant that the VPK was all day, up until when normal school hours end, and she's been thriving ever since.
Well, thank you, Simone. I'm pretty sure there are many parents and families that can identify with the process that you've had to go through. The different funding streams and programs that you mentioned through ELC, such as VPK, school readiness, Head Start, early Head Start, those are all they all represent the policies and investments that our state makes in early learning. So, Dawn, with that said, what is the focus of the Roadmap Advisory Board as we look ahead to our next legislative session?
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm very honored to be part of the Roadmap Advisory Board because it's an incredible group of people. And with all the recommendations that came out of the roadmap, what we really want to focus right now is on school readiness eligibility. One of the prime recommendation was to move toward a fully funded quality early learning system that supports the early brain development of all children birth age to 5. The system for early learning funding is broken. It's not sustainable. We focus on access, affordability, and quality. But to get quality, you have to pay your teachers more. You have to invest in your teachers, which then raises the cost to parents. So if you're a nonprofit organization like mine, I have to fundraise more to pay the teachers more, to get the tools to help the teachers to get that quality education so our children are school ready. But if you are a for-profit organization, you're going to raise your parent fees. The state says parents shouldn't pay more than 7% of their income for early learning. They're paying over 27%. So school readiness funding right now helps lower income families that are making less than 150% of the federal poverty level. The challenge now is with the increase of the minimum wage in Florida, people are on that fiscal cliff that Madeline mentioned before, that 150 to 200%. They're making a little bit more money, but they still can't afford quality early learning. So it's a vicious cycle that we're having. So the advisory board and our PR and awareness committee is focusing on educating not just the policymakers, but the community on the need for quality early childhood education, starting at birth, not just VPK, because we need to get to our children earlier, and what the costs are, and how do we get more funds from the state and from the federal government to support our families.
Thanks, Don. Yes, that comes with the mindset shift of the importance of early learning and the importance of it for all of us. One of the guiding principles of our work with the roadmap has been that it takes all of us. So our recommendations do go beyond legislative action. Herman, can you tell us more about the priorities of the early education workforce group that you sit on?
Yes. I want to begin by just thanking the organization, tactics, and strategies that the Florida Children's Movement has used to ensure that we have broad stakeholder engagement in our advisory groups and in our work groups. And, as an example, within the early childhood educator work group, we have practicing classroom teachers, we have program directors, we have childcare owners, in addition to other researchers, advocates, and agency personnel and leadership that are helping us talk through the primary issues facing our early care and education workforce and have actively identified, I think, some important goals and some specific activities that we're recommending that we take on as a state to improve the supports that we have for our early care and education workforce. The workforce is primarily focused on working to elevate the importance of early childhood educators so that they're publicly recognized as essential personnel that support a robust and thriving economy. In addition to that, we want to work to edify early educators through our words and our deeds to make sure that they know that they are vital to the community and that it is their work that results in a healthy and prosperous environment that is supportive of children and families. In support of those broader aims, we've identified 4 action priorities. First is to increase paid professional days for educators, recognizing that all of the additional education requirements that we see coming through a lot of the legislation aren't often paid work for the early care and education workforce. And for a workforce that is working very hard, diligently to support the needs of the children and the families in their classrooms, is that when they're out of the classroom learning additional skills, it's important that we find ways to compensate that time. Second is that we want to increase the number and the reliability of trainers and observers that are using the classroom assessment scoring system, which is a key measure of quality being implemented in the state of Florida. And we want to make sure that teachers and program administrators truly understand what they should do and the kinds of practices they should be using to perform well in that kind of observational assessment. But we also want to make sure that all of the trainers that are providing information to teachers and directors are providing consistent information that they can reliably build upon to improve the quality of services that are offered. Our third action priority is to support the development and implementation of an informal pathway of professional advancement for early childhood educators. Is that many of our early care and education educators and teachers that are working in the field are not engaged in with college or a university or state college to cultivate the skills, but they are actively working to learn how to do their jobs better through informal workshops, through engagement with coaches and other personnel that work with them in their schools. And it's important for us as a state to recognize that learning and accomplishment so that we can continue to support professional growth over time among the workforce. And finally, the last action priority that we've identified is to work to expand wage incentive programs for the early care and education workforce. It's widely known that they are among the lowest paid teachers that are working directly with children and families to support growth and learning and development. And as a result, we have a high teacher turnover rate. We find it oftentimes difficult to recruit new folks into this line of work. And we're hopeful and optimistic that if we were to identify better ways and systems for compensating personnel, we'll be able to attract and retain a robust teaching workforce to support our youngest kids and their families. I think I got it.
Thank you, Herman. Yes, the compensation, respect, professional development, recruitment and retention, all of that is so vital to our workforce. Also to ensure that our young learners are having the impactful learning experiences they should be. And whether that be in a family childcare home setting, a childcare center, or similar, we also love the idea of parent choice and allowing the parent to decide what best fits the needs of their children and their families. So with that said, Carrie, you were one of our guest speakers earlier this year on the Future Call, and you mentioned an early learning portal that will roll out this year. I'm excited that it's up and running. Can you just share with us how this portal works and the benefits of having such a resource for our families?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, a new Florida statute was established through passage of House Bill 1 that occurred during the 2023 legislative session. And it required the department to create and deploy an online forward-facing early learning provider search that integrates with an online portal for K-12. So it's one online portal for families to search and find the best school or childcare that best meets their child's needs and their family's needs. So the online portal provides families with real-time searchable information about childcare openings, the tuition and fees for said childcare, the curriculum that's being utilized, as well as a number of other things like we use program assessment, we use CLAS in the state of Florida. So the scores that those childcare providers receive as it relates to the quality of teacher-child interactions that are occurring, openings, and just other services offered as it relates to what our childcare provider can provide. Most recently, we have we have a soft launch that took place in August of this particular portal. It's got a name. It's called My Florida Schools, and I can drop the link so you can access information about My Florida Schools. Again, a soft launch really to support providers as well as K-12 schools to customize their page for our consumers and our families across the state so they know what they're signing up for, right? And so just an unbelievable opportunity for a one online portal to provide all the childcare options that are across the state of Florida, as well as our K-12 schools, private, public, faith-based, charter, it does not matter, right? That they have this one-stop shop to identify a school or childcare that best meets their family's needs. So super excited about it. Again, soft launch. Providers and schools are working on their pages currently, but all the information is readily available on our website, which I will drop in the chat now.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. I'm excited about that portal. My background is in child welfare, and I was in placements for a long time, and a huge barrier was finding childcare that affected so many placement options for our children. So instead of foster parents and just parents and caregivers having to call around to so many different providers, there's this one-stop shop. You can go and see what the availability is, what's open, like you said, the curriculum and stuff. That is awesome. So I encourage parents, caregivers, get on the portal, figure out how to navigate it, and see what centers or early learning resources may best meet your family's needs. Also, as providers, get on and make sure that your information is there and up to date so that our parents and our families can identify and find you to potentially become little students in your schools. So we have our Roadmap Advisory Board working on the state level to push forward specific recommendations. And now we have community drivers on that same road choosing recommendations to prioritize locally. Diana, as a community driver, Thrive by 5 Tampa Bay is already leading the work. You all are already convening the voices in your communities. And now you are collaborating with the Roadmap and implementing Roadmap recommendations in your local community. What recommendations have you all chosen to implement, and how is that going?
Well, thanks, Furness. And first and foremost, we're so excited to be signed on to be a community driver. Madeline and the team has been really important to the work at Thrive by 5 in Tampa Bay. And our ultimate goal is kindergarten readiness and supporting families. So in the Tampa Bay area, only about 1 out of 2 of our children are deemed kindergarten ready, which is a huge problem that, of course, we see across the state and the country. So what we've done is we've come together. There's over 65 organizations that say, what do we do to change this? This is what I can do. These are some strategies we could use. How do we incorporate businesses? So we've done a lot of work in the space of working with parents and businesses. And so some of the things that we're excited to amplify that align with the roadmap is, first and foremost, we just launched our Thrive by 5 Connects platform. So that's where a caregiver goes in. They can go in anonymously, just share their zip code and also the age of their children, or if mom's pregnant, and just ideally fill out an entire screener, but they can feel out whatever they're comfortable with. And then the system will give their tailored list of services within their communities that they can call and connect with. So we're really excited to have launched that. Additionally, there's lots and lots of talk, of course, about literacy, and just with the ability to have so many fantastic partners at the table, had conversations with the ELCs and others, and the ELC of Hillsborough County said, we need an early literacy resource guide. And we partnered, and they promoted that work and were able to fund us to create a free literacy resource guide for our families in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. And a lot of that, honestly, is for the entire state of Florida, because a lot of it is open to the state. So we have caregiver resources, digital books, free physical books delivered to your door, direct links to the library, program descriptions, QR codes. Like, let's get this out. And having such a large network that continues to grow, we've been able to get it out through all of our providers, through faith-based locations, through the school system, through all of the partners at the table. And we want to get our kids reading. We want books in the homes. We want literacy to be something that all families deem important, but to support them. So that's where Thrive by 5 Connects, the platform, comes in. If mom or dad are struggling or have multiple jobs, or there's food insecurities, there's other primary issues that they need to deal with, how do we help get them services so we can wrap our arms around the entire family? And so we also want to include our businesses in this. It's not just us preaching to the choir in our world of early learning. The business community has a really large role to play, because as we've talked about today, there are massive childcare issues in the workplace. We talk about family-friendly policies and the importance of that. So what this group has done, and that's our business engagement work group, they say, well, let's start honoring, let's start sharing best practices. Let's use some positive reinforcement. So we have an annual awards where we highlight families, and we work very closely with Bosses for Babies. So Rick actually chairs that committee as well. And really what we want to do is we want to get businesses thinking about, how can we do better for our families? How do we, do we need PTO, better benefits, flexible schedules? Do we need to make sure if they can't work remote, at least that they know exactly a couple weeks in advance of their hours? So what are these different things we can do? And so we bring together businesses. Most recently, PNC Bank spoke about their incredible corporate volunteerism program and how they listen to their employees and help them be engaged in the community. So that's a really cool initiative, Family Friendly Tampa Bay, that has absolutely grown. We had about 12 businesses sign on, and now we're at 45. And so very excited to honor them. Most recently, Buccaneers and the Rays and all the fun sports teams for those of you sports fans out there. But really making sure that people are talking about family-friendly policies, and not just in the soft way like we've covered today. Like, there's a real economic component of this as well. And we want to retain our employees, and we want to treat them well. So really excited that we have a lot of initiatives that really fall under our Thriving Parents part of the roadmap, and thrilled to be able to support that and share those ideas with others.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana. As I've told you time and time again, I love all that you all do at Thrive by 5, but especially that Thrive by 5 connects to support our parents by connecting them to the resources they need to help their family. Wow, I can't believe how quickly time has gone by. As you all have heard, we have a lot of movement around the roadmap. Now, imagine our future in Florida, where each child has the early learning opportunities they need to thrive. There's a role here for all of us as Floridians to move this work forward and making that future that we imagine a reality. I ask that you all keep the conversations going. Join us on the future call. Share the roadmap with your professional, social, and personal networks. And please remember, it takes all of us.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and all of you. The faces of the roadmap are indeed beautiful. So if you've read the roadmap and found something that resonates with you, let us know. If you think you're already responding to one of the roadmap's recommendations in your communities, let us know. We want to highlight this and keep the conversation going on the positive momentum. And Vanessa mentioned the future call. You'll see a link in the chat for this. Every other week, it's a quick 45-minute connection point on something wonderful happening in our state for early learning. And unlike today, these are Zoom meetings where everyone's face is on and we can interact. So every other Tuesday, noon Eastern time, you'll see that pop up in the chat. More than 950 of you have already joined us on one of these calls since January, and there's a whole lot more to come.